babies that are born now are born with all these toxins in their cord blood, these environmental toxins that we
Yeah.
just have inside of us as women. And they go into our babies through their umbilical cords, no matter how careful we are. So babies are already starting their life with a body burden.
Hello, welcome everyone to episode number 12 of I Think I Can podcast, a place where I will teach you to think differently in order to get different results. Today I have with me Jen Stevens. Jen has lived the intermittent fasting lifestyle since 2014, losing over 80 pounds. She is the host of 3 top ranking podcasts, all of which I've listened to, by the way, and still do. The first one, Intermittent Fasting Stories, the Intermittent Fasting Podcast with Melanie Avalon, and the latest one is Life Lessons Podcast with Sherry Bullock. Um, I have to ask you, do you still not listen to any of your podcasts? You don't. I don't know.
I don't listen to
That's
them at all. No,
crazy.
I'm like, I don't need to listen to them. I already said it. I said it.
Yeah. Okay. No, I think that's
I've never,
great.
never listened to them ever. And Sherry has to listen to ours.
Okay.
That's
Okay.
like, make sure it's okay. And I have
Right.
someone who writes my show notes for intermittent fasting stories. So she listens to it and does all the quality control and make sure there's nothing weird in the sound. But I've
Yeah.
like managed, I'm paying her to do it. And then Sherry listens. And so
Yeah.
I
Neat.
never have to.
Gee, that's wonderful. But okay, so I also have to tell you guys that Jen has also authored 3 best-selling books. The first one, Fast, Feast, Repeat. Delay, Don't Deny is the second one. Delay, Don't Deny, Living an Intermittent Fasting Lifestyle. And
Mhm.
her most recent book, which I have right here, is Cleanish, Eat Mostly Clean, Live Mainly Clean, and Unlock Your Body's Natural Ability to Self-Clean. And that was just released in 2022, like
Yeah.
January. Well,
It
we are
just
in
came
January.
out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
wonderful. So, yeah, where to begin? I like to always start the podcast by asking my guest, what was your most memorable I think I can moment? Where we're kind of,
Wow.
yeah, we're,
My
oh,
most memorable, I think I can moment. Well, I'm an educator. I taught elementary school for 28
mm,
years. And what really struck me, what really changed me was reading the work of Carol Dweck, the work on mindset that I actually had a chance to see her as a keynote speaker at the National Gifted Conference. And I don't know if it was 2012, somewhere around there, but her research on mindset really taught me that what we say to ourselves and what we believe about ourselves is powerful
mm,
versus, like whether you have a fixed mindset, like, I'm overweight. My body holds on to
yeah.
weight. I can't lose weight. It's just the way I am. Or growth mindset when you know that you can make changes. So
Mhm.
the whole idea of my body can lose the weight it needs to lose. I can be healthy as I age. I can figure this out. And so I feel like my shift came. I mean,
Mm.
I knew the work of Carol Dweck. My shift came in 2014 when I was obese. I was 210 pounds. And I just said, you know what? This is the end of this. I'd struggled with my weight for so many years by that point, up and down, up and down, up and down. And I was like, this is the last time I'm going to lose this weight. I'm going to figure it out and I can do this. And
Mhm.
I did.
Wow.
And I have not gained the weight, since. I've been maintaining for 7 years now. I've maintained my loss, which is astonishing. I've gone
It
through, I mean, it isn't because I decided, I made that shift. And I knew that I was going to work with my body and I could understand my body and figure out what would help me finally work with my body and lose the weight that I wanted to lose and keep it off. Even as I've gone through menopause, I'm on the other side of that and
Mhm.
still wearing my same jeans that I bought. I don't know how many years ago I bought these jeans, 5 years ago, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, like you talk about in your podcast. That's really how you judge your weight more or less is
Right.
you're putting on your skinny jeans, right?
Yep.
And I think that is the best way of, kind of checking in to your weight once in a while is feeling a little, yeah, tight or not. But
Right.
so do you use the scale,
Nope,
Jim?
I haven't weighed myself since. All right, so I always have to do the math. So I hit my goal in 2015. I weighed for the first year of maintenance, so through 2016. Then I didn't weigh for a year. From 2016 to 2017, I didn't weigh. And over the year from 2016 to 2017, I lost 2 jeans sizes. So I knew what I had weighed the last time I was on the scale in 2016. And the number I saw, I think, was 132 or something like that.
Mm.
And so I had lost 2 jean sizes. So I was like, I really feel like I'm probably at least 125 or at most 125. It's like, I just want to, see and verify. And I got on the scale that I think it was June of 20. What did I say? It was 2017. I got on the scale and the number was 130 point something. And I was like, what? I was mad.
Oh
I was like,
yeah,
how could I
sure.
not have lost it? Why am I not 125 pounds or 122 pounds or whatever? And I'm like, wait a minute, this is ridiculous. I've lost 2 more jean sizes. I'm maintaining flawlessly. I have no problem. So I threw my scale in the garbage. It was one of those like
Yeah.
Bluetooth scales that was expensive. I walked out to the garbage and I threw it in there. And I've not seen a number since then. Like if I've gone to the doctor and they wanted to weigh me, first I'd be like, why do you need to weigh me? You don't need to weigh me.
Yeah. Yeah,
Or
exactly. I
like,
know.
I'm not going to look. Don't tell me what it says. That's fine. I
Yeah.
don't need to see that number because if I got on there today wearing my same size 0 jeans that I bought, I don't know what, like I said, 5 years ago, if I got on there and it said a number that was higher than 130 point whatever that I saw
Yeah.
last time, what would that do mentally to me? I don't need to even see that. So,
No, it's true. It does, unfortunately, for women, it's a huge, it can make or break. So are you saying that you were successful on these other diets as well? Like you mentioned, I was on tons of diets,
over the
and
years,
yeah,
yeah,
like with the mindset, like what was it about this? I mean, I don't know, maybe this is where you get into intermittent fasting. Like
right.
what it was, how was it different? Because it sounds like you always had a great mindset. And I mean,
Well,
you've achieved a lot. You got your
I
PhD
I was
and
in diet mindset all those years. I would like bounce from diet to diet, and I wanted it to be fast, and I wanted it to be, I wanted to be able to, like have your cake and eat it too. I mean, I
yeah.
wanted to eat all the time, whatever I wanted, as much as I wanted,
Uh,
and I tried everything where it was like limiting macros, counting carbs or counting
yeah.
fat or counting calories, or even with intermittent fasting, I dabbled in it from '09 to 14 here and there, but I didn't understand anything about the way it worked in the body hormonally or, the metabolic flexibility that you get when you're
Hmm.
adapted to intermittent fasting. So I would like try it for 3 days and then, oh, I didn't lose any weight and I eat over the weekend. The weight was all back. I'm like, this doesn't work. And so I just always had that like how we go to the grocery store checkout line and we see those. I'm sure you have them where you are. The at the checkout, it's like lose 125
Oh,
pounds by Easter.
you mean the magazine stands, like
Right.
yeah,
We have them by the checkout right
yeah,
there at
so
the
do we.
grocery store.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I was like, well, I want to do that, but nothing is like that. Right.
No.
And so I'd be like, well, this isn't working. And then I would throw it away and eat whatever, and drown my sorrows. And there
Yeah.
was the end of that. And I yo-yoed a lot. I mean, I did some crazy things. I did, the HCG diet. I took diet pills that the doctor prescribed to me. I did everything you could do, every crash diet you could do, every reasonable diet. I mean, I literally did them all. And I would yo-yo up and down. And it got to the point, like I said, that I yo-yoed my way up to 210 pounds and I was just miserable in my body. And that was 2014. And that's when I was like, this is it. I mean, like I set an intention,
Yes.
I wrote it down, I
Great.
visualized myself at my goal. And the
Yeah.
last time I'd been at that goal was when I was taking those diet pills that the doctor gave me. And I'm like, I want to be back there, but not with diet pills, not with anything that feels like I can't do it forever. And I was like, it's got to be intermittent fasting. And so it
So,
was.
Okay. Okay. So a lot of questions. So are you saying that you just started to you decided and you identified yourself, maybe would you say like I identified myself as not, as slim, as
Yep.
not being obese. And
Hmm.
so I mean it all sounds great, but then but then you wake up the next day and when your husband's eating breakfast and that's that's the test, right? You walk into the kitchen and you that's when you kind of go, I'm doing the same old,
Right.
or you're something like something was different.
Yeah.
Was it not? Yeah.
Well, and I remember, like, feeling like why do I have to not eat? If why am I have, there was that whole, it was just the mindset of the scarcity mindset of why do I have to fast when everyone else gets to eat? And,
Exactly. Yeah.
I was trapped in that probably all those years that I kept dabbling in it and it didn't work. I had like, I was a teacher. I would walk into the teacher workroom and there's a teacher over there eating chicken minis from Chick-fil-A and having a Coke or whatever for breakfast. And I'm like, why does she get to eat that? And she's slim. I want to eat that too. And then
Yes. No, exactly.
that mindset didn't serve me very well. That's the mindset that got me to, I like to call it like, my toddler, I want it now mindset.
Exactly.
And that's really, my first book, Delay Don't Deny, that I wrote in 2016. Um, the whole idea, just delay, don't
Yeah.
deny. Like if
Yeah.
I really want to have, what she's having, I absolutely can have that. I just don't have to
Hmm.
have it right now. Those experiments they did with the kids back in the day where they would have like cookies in front of them. The experimenters would put the cookies there and they'd be like, all right, kids, you can have these cookies later. And then they would like leave the room and the kids would have to look at the cookies. And some of the kids were not able to wait. They just ate the cookies as soon as the
Yeah.
people left the room. But other kids were able to, not eat the cookies and delay and just wait. And then at the end of the experiment, they got to have the cookies. So it's just a matter of once I got my mind around the idea of, I'm just delaying. I can have what I want to have. I don't have to live a life, restricted eating where I'm, eating
Yeah.
only the list of foods that are right here, or not having a carb ever again, or never going to have ice cream, or never going to have a burger,
Right.
whatever it is, or never have French fries. I don't want to live a life where I can't, but I can delay it. I can
Yeah.
wait a few more hours.
Yeah.
And as I really started to get into it, I realized that once my body adapted to intermittent fasting and I was metabolically flexible and burning fat during the fast and feeling really good during the fast, I actually feel better during the day now than
Yeah.
I did back when I was like eating breakfast, mid-morning snack, lunch, mid-afternoon snack, dinner.
Hmm.
I felt so many ups and downs during the day as when I was on that
Hmm.
blood sugar roller coaster all day long. But now that my
Hmm.
body's fat adapted, I'm metabolically flexible. It's not hard. I mean, we're recording this. It's 2 p.m. here, and I haven't opened my window yet, and I'll open it later.
Yeah.
And it's not hard at all. Like whenever
No.
I record a podcast, I like to be in the fasted state because I have better mental clarity.
Hmm.
So I just wait to open my window until later. Tomorrow I'm going to an event. I'm going to speak at the
Mm.
event in the late, it probably will be done like 6 or 7. I won't open my window till we're done. That's a later. I don't usually wait that
Yeah,
long,
that's long.
but I don't want to feel sluggish or like, have mental dips,
Yeah.
during the presentation. So I'll go and have a wonderful dinner when it's done.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's not hard at all because I'll be able to enjoy whatever foods sound delicious to me and I'll feel satisfied and I'm not like I'm meeting some people at a coffee shop before the events, people that are driving down from another town. I'm driving up from my town and there's some people in my community and they're like, here's the menu of the coffee shop. We need to order ahead of time. What do you want? And I'm like, have a mug of hot water ready for me. That's what I'm
That
going to want.
well,
It won't be
okay.
hard to watch the meat is the point I'm making because that's the long way around that question. It's not going to be hard for me to watch them eat it, whatever they're eating or whatever they're having. I won't feel like I've completely lost the sense of I'm missing out. I no longer experience that.
Right.
I
Yeah.
will be happy to sit and talk to them because I know that if I did have, a sandwich and a scone or whatever,
Yeah.
I would feel
Yeah.
later when I'm trying to do my talk. So
Yeah.
that wouldn't serve me well. So it's very easy to delay.
And like, yeah, and for listeners, if you're, if you're uncertain you know, what Jen meant by opening up her window, like I would definitely get the book, and she goes into great detail what, fasting actually is.
Right.
Um because yeah, we could go into explaining, but there's been so much about it in the media too, whether it's time restricted eating or intermittent fasting. I had a hard time believing that no one, it's not like it was years ago. Like, I mean, it's just so out there because it's proven by many longevity experts that it is healthy for the body. But what do you but speaking of that though, I mean, there's a lot of other people, like especially like in functional medicine, for example, we often hear about women being able to control their hormone, like their stress
Right.
hormone in the morning, and really recommend, in order to sort of level off that spike of cortisol in the morning, you probably want to have fat and protein. I mean, I hear that all the time.
Yeah.
So, like, yeah, so you laugh, but what's your, I'm not going to say your argument, but what's, I'm kind of curious. That's one question, but did you ever try to just kind of resume a 3 meal a day? Let's say it was to like a spinach mushroom scramble in the morning, which is, fat, protein, very healthy, low carbs, low calorie. And then, your lunch would be whatever, big salad with salmon. And I mean, whatever, chia seed. I mean, you're checking off all the
Let
boxes,
me let
right?
me just stop you right there. I have tried eating in every possible way you could eat. And there have been days where I open my window earlier and like have meals, and I know how I feel my best, right?
Mm,
And I can read any theory in the entire world about what my cortisol might be spiking or doing. And
yeah.
I guarantee that the way I feel at 10 in the morning is far superior than how I ever felt at 10 in the morning back in the day when I was, trying to follow a more typical eating pattern, right?
Yeah.
And so I can only go by what I feel. And also I've now talked to thousands of people who are intermittent fasters in my communities. At one time, I left Facebook recently in March of 2021. I left completely. But when I left, I had intermittent fasting support groups that had combined membership of almost 500,000. We had
Wow.
almost 500,000 combined members when I said, I'm leaving Facebook, goodbye. It wasn't quite so simple and it wasn't quite so easy. But I've been around the intermittent fasting world for a while, and my message is find the eating window timing that feels right to your body. There is a small fraction of people that feel better with a morning eating window. They
Right.
exist. They are out there. I am
Right.
not one of those people. And I'm a big believer in, we don't all have the same,
No.
circadian rhythm timing in our bodies as
Well,
another person like
yeah.
Melanie Avalon, who co-hosts the intermittent fasting podcast with me. She's a super duper night owl.
Yeah.
She opens her window like when I'm about ready to go to bed.
Oh my gosh.
I'm usually done eating by 7:30, 8 p.m. every night, but she's just getting started. But I'm also wide awake and ready to go at 5:30, 6 in the morning. That's when my body springs out of bed, where she likes to sleep late. And it's just a
Mm-hmm.
matter of we've come to find the pattern that feels right for us. But out of all those thousands of people, when I was writing Fast Feast Repeat in 2019, I posed the question in one of my support groups. And the question was, when is your eating window? And I just wanted to know. It's not a scientific survey, but it was just, people who Facebook showed the survey to and let them see it, and the people who answered it, the vast majority prefer an evening eating window that or late afternoon to evening, like encompassing the dinner hour, because that's just really how we feel the best. And I
Well,
have, the great energy during the day. I eat, and then it's like wind down time in the evening. So let me talk also about women, because you mentioned that. I just went to a conference in October that was the health and wellness community, and almost everyone there. And there were obviously people like me. I'm not a doctor, but most of the people there were doctors. They were in the functional medicine world. There were chiropractors, there were surgeons. I mean, you name it, any kind of doctor, OBGYNs, like Dr. Quebeca was there. Anna Quebeca?
yeah.
She was at the conference. People like, Cynthia Thurlow won an award at this conference. So it's that type of community.
Yeah.
The more natural health related community. But when I would introduce myself to people, they always led with that question. We always said, what do you do? What do you do? And I said, oh, I'm, in the intermittent fasting space. And they're like, yeah, but what about women?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Because it's gotten so much airtime. But here's what we know about women. Okay. I want to think back to the diet pills days, or the days I was, doing the HCG diet, or when I was trying to eat 1,200 calories a day spread out throughout the day. Those were worse for my body than intermittent fasting. And yet, if I went out in the world and announced I'm going to do a 1,200 calorie diet and I'm going to eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner, everybody'd be like, awesome, that's what you do.
Yeah.
Right. No one would criticize that. But actually, a 1,200 calorie, low calorie diet that you white knuckle it through day after day is more likely to cause your body to have metabolic slowdown and have hormonal issues over time, because your body perceives that as over restriction, because that is what is really bad for women and men. But for women, over restriction sends a very negative hormonal signal to our body.
Yes.
So we hear the words intermittent fasting and we're like, well, that's over restriction, but it isn't. And that's the key is, the way I live my intermittent fasting lifestyle, I'm eating way more than 1,200 calories a day. I don't count calories, but yes, I'm eating way more than 1,200 calories a day in my eating window. I'm nourishing my body well. And no one would bat an eye if I were counting out 1,200 calories a day and eating them throughout the day. I'd get a thumbs up from the medical world. But the fact that I concentrated into an eating window, everybody's like, yeah, but fasting is not good for women. I'm like, no, over restriction is not good for women. And when we force ourselves to live on these tiny little meals throughout the day, our body is not well fueled. We've all had that experience where we feel just so, hangry. You eat your little diet breakfast and then you're starving, and you eat your diet lunch and then you're starving, and you never feel satisfied ever. And then you can white knuckle it through that for, I don't know, depends on how determined you are, but eventually your body is going to be like, you are hungry. And then you're just going to have a binge. Then you're like, man, I'm weak. Yeah. I'm so weak. Yeah. I just can't stick to anything. And then you're off the diet. And then there you go. And now you're regaining more weight than you lost, because now, depending on how long you white knuckled it through that diet, you've probably slowed your metabolic rate. Like we found out with the Biggest Loser study that came out in, I don't know, when was that, 2015 something, or 2016, the participants, the ones who were actually the best at keeping their weight off, had the slowest metabolic rate among those Biggest Loser participants. The ones who had really, kept the calories low, who had really kept being as active as they could, they were struggling, but their metabolic rate was lower than predicted based on their size, because their body had just lowered their metabolic rate more and more to, try to protect them, because that's what our bodies do. And in fact, the ones whose metabolic rates had improved the most were the ones who had regained the most weight, because they were like, forget it. We can't live with that much restriction. Like our bodies just fight back. And eventually, you can only fight your body so long. I recently interviewed someone, the episode won't come out till probably May of 2022, but she had been on Extreme Weight Loss or Extreme Makeover Weight Loss Edition. And she lost like 200 pounds in a year or something.
Wow.
But it was textbook, everything that we learned from the Biggest Loser study, everything we learned from the Minnesota starvation experiment that was done back in the 40s about how your body fights back after extreme deprivation. She lived it. That when that episode comes out, Jackie McCoy is her name. And like I said, it's not going to come out on intermittent fasting stories for a while, but she lost her period. She wasn't getting a cycle anymore. She was extremely, limiting how much food she ate and working out like crazy. And luckily now she's an intermittent faster, but now her body is hormonally balanced.
Yeah.
Because when she was doing what the experts told her to do on this television show, it like ruined her body hormonally. So, I mean,
wow. Well, like, I think you're just saying, individuality is so important.
Yeah.
And so you're also saying, okay, so you're eating, your body is being told right now that, there is no starvation.
Right.
You're getting plenty of calories. You're good. Just lose the weight. Like, you're okay. But do you ever feel like, I guess, like, do you ever feel like, so you don't worry about macronutrients, like let's say you I'm not saying you should do this, but if you would do an experiment where, let's say you just ate foods that didn't spike your insulin, and let's say you ate liver for lunch, you had eggs for breakfast, and so your insulin's not really spiking with that. And we're not going to get into the science of all that, but I mean, again, if you guys really want to get in,
like if I was keto, right? If you're
kind of keto, like, so you're telling your body you're safe, you can lose weight, don't worry about it, but you're saying that you would probably put on weight if you ate.
Let me just say, I followed keto in the summer of 2014, and I followed it by the book. I know how to do what they said to do. And I did it like hardcore, 20 net carbs a day. I did it just right the whole time. And I did it for the whole entire summer. I'm a teacher. I was off for the summer. I was like, I'm so tired of restrictive dieting. I read all the books, good calories, bad calories, all the books that were out. Of course, the obesity code wasn't out till 2016, but everything that was out at the time of 2014, I joined all the keto Facebook groups and I embraced it fully, I was having my bulletproof coffee. I was doing it all, right?
Yeah.
All. I was using the organic MCT oil. If you could do it, I was doing it. If I didn't lose a pound, not one, I never felt satisfied for a minute. I didn't feel, they're like, oh, it just kills your hunger. Didn't.
Wow. Interesting.
And so that was when, now I do think, I was getting into ketosis. I had one of those old school ketone breath meters that you plugged in, the old ones. I can't remember, ketonics, maybe they were called. Okay. But I was getting very deep red on the ketonics. So I know it was working. And I know I was in ketosis, but I wasn't losing body fat. I didn't lose any fat. But again, the most important part is I felt awful. I didn't feel satisfied. So that was when I finally was like, it's just going to have to be intermittent fasting. Mm-hmm. So I quit keto, reintroduced carbs, and started intermittent fasting all at the same time. Wow. And that was the last time that was when it stuck. And I do think that perhaps being in trying keto all those months, maybe got me fat adapted. Mm-hmm. And so when I was able to fast, my body was fat adapted and finally able to tap into my fat stores for fuel. And I reintroduced the carbs, but I immediately started losing weight when I reintroduced the carbs and started intermittent fasting. And when I say reintroduce the carbs, I was eating the standard American diet. Like I would have, pizza or a McDonald's or whatever. I don't eat like that anymore. No, but that's how I was eating then. So reintroducing carbs, intermittent fasting, I started to lose about a pound a week. Yeah. And then later, as I dialed in my eating window and started eating real foods and not ultra processed foods, I read a book called The Science of Skinny. It's a very little known book that I don't know. Somehow I found it, but it was an
of course you did. You're like, I don't know anybody's more determined than you're true. Like, talk about, boy, I picked a good one for.
I delayed processed foods for 10, I had 20 more pounds I wanted to lose. And it was about time to go shopping for my summer wardrobe. And I'm like, I need to do something. I need to lose weight more quickly. So I stopped eating ultra processed foods. I didn't eliminate carbs. I didn't
Mhm.
eliminate fat. I didn't count calories. I didn't stop eating anything except for ultra processed foods.
Yeah.
And she doesn't use the word ultra processed in her book because that wording, we were just saying processed at that point. But this was 2015. I lost 2 pounds a week
Wow.
just
Just
by
cutting out the crap.
yes, I wasn't having, refined sugar. I would a typical dinner might be for me at that time. I might have a giant baked potato full of
Mhm.
butter and sour cream
Mhm.
with, black beans on the side and maybe some sauteed, squash and zucchini and onions,
Mhm.
real
Mhm.
food. And maybe I would have some
Yeah.
berries with heavy cream
Yeah. Yeah.
for a little something sweet. So I wasn't counting, restricting, limiting carbs, limiting fat. I wasn't doing any of that. And my body dropped 2 pounds a week.
So
And
what?
I felt amazing.
Well, and that was like breakfast, lunch, dinner, kind of
No,
following that. Oh,
no,
that
I
was
was
just
doing intermittent fasting. Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. I'm
Okay.
going to tell you, I ate in every style you could eat with a 3 meal a day, eating all day. I did
Yeah.
low carb. I did low fat. Actually, low fat did work for me back in the 90s. I lost weight
Mm.
and got to a really low weight with low fat. That worked really well
Mm.
for my body back in the early 90s. So say what you will about that, but that really worked. But my body liked low fat a lot more than I never lost weight on low carb, whether you called it the Suzanne Summers plan or the Atkins
Yeah.
plan or
Yeah.
keto or whatever. I did all of the ways you could do them, and I even did the eat clean thing when that first started, back in, I don't know, maybe it was around the years 2010. There was a book that came out that was all eating clean. I'm like, well, I can do that.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't lose any weight. So the only time I managed to lose weight and keep it off was intermittent fasting
Wow.
ever.
Yeah. So yeah, again, we're speaking towards individuality. Like
Right.
that's all what it is. So
But I've heard from so many, like I said, thousands of people. And every time I talk to someone on intermittent fasting stories, and someone criticized the podcast in my community yesterday. They're like, everybody's like, and then it was so easy, and I just did it, and I lost the weight, and it was easy. And she's like, but it doesn't always feel easy. And then I sat and thought with that for a while because,
mm,
I mean, obviously her words were powerful. It didn't feel easy
yeah.
to her. She wasn't finding it to be easy right that minute, and yet we all make it sound so easy. And then I really thought about that for a while. And then someone came along and said, I think the reason we all, when we talk on the podcast or the people talking, they say, and then it was so easy. It's because we tried all these other things that were
Mm,
so hard. We tried
mm,
all these other things that didn't work, made us feel worse, and we didn't lose the weight. So once we dial into intermittent fasting, it feels easy because it's so much easier than all that other stuff.
yeah, maybe
And
that's a good
then the
point.
person was like, oh, you know what? I've never really dieted before. So this is a lot harder than that. Like someone
Yeah.
who's never dieted before, maybe switching to an intermittent fasting lifestyle is harder because now you're doing something that you've never done. But for those of us who have tried all the things,
Yeah.
it's such a relief. It's like you set down that struggle and it's like, all I have to do is open my window and then eat the foods that make me feel great and then close it. That's all. It's like,
Yeah.
yep, that's
Yep.
all you have to do. And so that's such a relief that it feels so much easier than all those years of struggle. I struggled for
Mm-hmm.
decades. And,
Yeah.
ever since I haven't struggled. I'm not gonna say every day is easy or every minute is perfect. There's some days you just feel like, man, I really would like to just eat because I'm bored or I'm had an emotional, you know,
Yeah. For sure.
but
Sure.
we don't need to feed our emotions. We need to deal with them.
Right, right. Yeah, exactly. I'm bored. Yeah, I'm lonely. I think boredom is a huge part of it. And I think we've,
Yeah.
seen that with COVID, right? Like, I mean, but yeah, it could be peer socialization. Well, no, that wasn't COVID, but it could be that, right? Like, oh, we're
Right.
meeting for lunch. Oh, why don't you
Well, like
come?
everyone else is going to be eating tomorrow when we
Yeah,
go to that cafe and I'm not going to be, and I don't even care. It's not a
right.
problem.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Um, what I was gonna say though, like to get like, I know you have all the answers for this, but like, do you feel you can get the nutrients that you need in that smaller eating window? I don't know what it is for you, Jen. Is it 4 hours? Is it
It depends. It depends on the day. I don't time
okay?
it like so rigidly anymore.
No.
I am going to guarantee you that I am getting more nutrients in my eating window than the standard American gets throughout the course of possibly a week, because when I was researching for my new book, Cleanish, and the way that we're eating now in America, more than half of adults, well, wait, no, that let me see if I can get the statistic right. I'm trying to remember it. The majority of adults in America, eat over 50% of their diet is ultra processed food.
Wow.
Okay. So like I went to a coffee shop with my son the other day over the weekend. We went at about 1:00 and I didn't have to record anything later. I was like, I'm just going to open my window here with you. I love this coffee shop. I would like to have a chai latte. It's early enough in the day. So I got a chai latte and they had these amazing scones. So I got a scone. It was like bacon and cinnamon and pecan flavored scone. It was amazing. And then I had an egg sandwich on an anything bagel. Or an everything bagel. So it was an everything bagel with bacon and cheddar and the egg. And I ate that meal and it was delicious. And I didn't regret it for a second, but I'm like, this meal was nothing but fat and carbs. That was all that it was.
Yes.
I mean, it had protein. It was protein, fat, and carbs, but it had zero, not a vegetable to be seen.
No.
I mean, that was not full of amazing nutrients, right? So I just put a lot of fuel into my body, a lot of, calories went in, but it wasn't nourishing me. Whereas if I sit down and have an amazing, kale and white bean and sausage with onion and garlic stew, whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, that meal probably has more nutrients than most Americans are eating all day long with all the food that they're putting into their bodies.
Yeah.
So I actually feel like I get way more nutrients. I'm healthy and I eat a variety of foods from day to day. Like I remember when my children were little and I'm like, well, how do I make sure, today he only eats things that are beige, whatever. And the doctor's like, over time, it all averages out.
Yeah.
You don't have to get every nutrient, every phytochemical every day. The biggest thing you can do is eat a wide variety of foods over time. So I'm doing a little experiment right now just for fun. Tim Spector, who wrote the foreword for Cleanish, he's a world-renowned gut expert, gut microbiome, and he has a company, Zoe is his company, and they will test your gut microbiome. They're big in personalized nutrition. Like his work's been in all the, the top journals like Nature, for example. He's well published. Great scientist. But we had a webinar from our community and the number one thing he recommends is try to eat 30 different plants a week. I mean, and so I was like, all right, I'm going to keep a list. So I'm keeping a list for the month of January and I'm already up to 70 something, I think, plants.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. That is impressive.
Right?
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't mean I've had 70 servings because, you can't I might have a handful of almonds, right? Or I don't know, or I might have, the kale in the soup, but I'm getting all those different phytochemicals, all the nutrients from the variety of things.
Yeah. You're right. It's sort of, well, okay. So how about feeling too full? Like, do you ever feel too full from eating?
Yeah. As a human, we all eat past our satiety point from time to time. And then we're like, oh, that was more than I needed. I don't feel that great. And then hopefully next time you listen, because we get those signals, our body's like, all right, you've had enough. And so, I am not somebody who just sits down and eats one meal and then gets up and that's my whole day.
Oh,
I usually open my eating window with a hearty snack. Think of it like if you're having a multi-course meal over a period, like if you go to a really nice French restaurant and you start with, an appetizer course, and then later you have a salad and maybe a soup, and then later you have an entree, and then later, and you're not in a hurry and you're sitting and you're enjoying, or if you're at a wedding reception and you're munching here and you're munching there and you're having the dinner, and then that's very much how I structure my window.
Okay.
I'm eating till I'm satisfied. I don't just like go to the table, eat a giant meal, we're done for the day. That wouldn't be very enjoyable.
No,
So
I was gonna say, like, I think you'd feel so full
I
and
wouldn't
just
like
like,
that. No.
no, because you're kind of like, well, I don't want to be hungry, until like 4 o'clock. So tomorrow. So I better eat tons of
Yo,
stuff right now.
never eat for future hunger either, because your goal is to nourish your body well within your eating window and to stop when you're satisfied. So when I open my window, like, well, I'll go eat when we're done
Mhm,
with our podcast
mhm,
today. I'll go
mhm.
and I'll have a bowl of there's a company I love, Daily Harvest. They sponsor my podcast. So I'll have a Daily Harvest bowl. It's full of like lentils and
Okay. Yeah.
kale and all, they put so many different plant foods in their bowls, and it'll be delicious. And then later I'll cook dinner for my family. But I mean, that bowl, I mean, someone might call it lunch. I don't know. I don't call it lunch. It's, it'll be after 3 p.m.
Right.
That's not the typical lunchtime. It's my
No.
starter, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's an hors d'oeuvre.
Yeah, exactly. Then later I'll have a meal with my family. I'll sit down with them and eat it. And that's, it's going to
Mhm.
be just the right amount of food for my body for the day. And I'll stop when I've had enough. And
Yeah.
some days, if I haven't been eating, if I've been really busy and my eating windows have been shorter, there'll be a day like this weekend where I'm like, you know what? It's 1 o'clock. I'm going to go have a meal at 1 o'clock, and then I'll have a full dinner later. So that day I had two meals and my window was, I don't know, 8 hours that day, something like that, maybe
Okay.
7.
Okay. Yeah. So it's not this like 1 hour a day, like, yeah, no, no,
No.
no. Yeah. I was gonna say that does not sound like a lot of fun.
Although I know people who do that. There, a guy that I just interviewed today for Intermittent Fasting Stories, Graham Curry. If any of your audience is in the intermittent fasting world, he has a
Yeah.
podcast called The Fasting Highway, and he has a book called The Fasting Highway. And he came on my podcast back in 2019 before he'd written his book or had his podcast. He's lost over 140 pounds. He lives in
Mm.
Australia, and he's maintained and kept it off. So his follow-up episode will come out in June of this year. But he and I were talking today. He lost the majority of his weight with 23-1. He had a 1 hour eating window. He's a big
Wow.
guy. He was over 300 pounds. So he would sit down, have that big meal, be done for the day. And that's what suited him. So I'm not going to
Mhm.
say that isn't something that can work. It worked really well for him. His body loved it. He felt satisfied. He fasted clean all day long, ran on his fat stores. When we're able to tap into our fat stores for fuel, we are well fueled during the fast
Yeah.
from our fat stores. That's why you feel so good. Then he would have his meal, nourish his body, and he is healthier now and feels better now than he ever has. But
Hmm.
he now does not just stick to that 1 hour eating window. He's also in maintenance. He's not trying to lose any more weight. So he can, kind of dial it in. He might have two meals on the weekend, or, a
Right.
slightly longer window here and there. But it's really, what feels right when it feels right.
See,
You
like
really know.
that's what I mean. Like I think it's like everything you're saying here is really coming back to, again, individuality. Like you
Yeah.
you did so much work in terms of figuring out what's good for you,
Right.
that like and you yeah, you cracked the code. And
Yeah.
so and like when you like cleanish too, it was nice, you know I thought it was going to be all about, getting rid of the toxins in our environment. And like that is a what I guess what prompted you to write about that? I mean, I know you tie in toxins within our body, and that's what
Right.
intermittent fasting does as well. It's not just in the environment, but it's, you tied in intermittent fasting in that book. But what prompted you to write a book about, toxins in our environment? I mean, it's very important. I'm not minimalizing it, but just it was a switch, somewhat for you, right?
Well, I mean, it's really just a continuation.
Okay.
As I started to feel better within my body, I have that period of the day with intermittent fasting, and that's our most important self-cleaning time, right? So the
Yeah.
subtitle of Cleanish, unlock your body's natural ability to self-clean. Intermittent fasting is one of our self-cleaning tools. So it's not an intermittent fasting book. Cleanish is
Mhm.
not. It's a book about really for any person who wants to be healthier in your body, because we live in a very different world now than the world of 10, 20, 30, 40, you go keep going back because of our, our toxic landscape and the foods that we're eating. And yeah, there's a lot to it, but as I gradually cleaned up the way I was eating and started to feel better, the better I ate, the fewer ultra processed foods I ate, the better I felt. Yeah. And then I was fortunate enough to have a co-host for the intermittent fasting podcast. She is not cleanish. She is clean.
Yeah, I know. Oh my God.
I'm cleanish, right? Yeah. But she is clean. And so she's like, you got to try this makeup that I'm using. You got to try this makeup. It's so much better. You got to try it. I'm like, I am fine. My makeup's fine. She's like, no, really, you got to read endocrine disruptors. You got to get it. I'm like, fine, I'll try the makeup just to get her to stop telling me to try the makeup. And then I'm like, oh, this is great makeup. I love the makeup. So, and then over time I started, if I'm putting on better makeup, maybe I need different new deodorant, or maybe I need, what am I really, using in my kitchen? I'm like, oh, but it's all fine. It's all good. But then when it was time to write another book, because my, Fast Feast Repeat was a New York Times bestseller. So when you write a New York Times bestseller, everyone is super interested in what you're going to write next. Mostly your editor and your agent really want you to write something next. So my editor and I were having a conversation, and she said, what is your next fasting book going to be? What is it going to be? I'm like, it's not going to be fasting. And I had to really push for it, because they're like, wait a minute, you write fasting books? Because my other book was fasting, and the one before that was fast. And I'm like, I've said everything I need to say about fasting in Fast Feast Repeat. I didn't hold anything back. I didn't keep the good stuff for there isn't like going to be a supercharged fasting plan that I'm going to, no. Fast Feast Repeat is it. That is all you need, is Fast Feast Repeat. But I've gone on this journey of, cleaning up my life and really understanding why it's important, with the makeup and everything else. I'm like, let me write this book. So I finally talked them into it, which was not easy, and they let me write it. But then I had to really start researching it, and I knew what directions I wanted to go. The whole premise was always from the beginning, put fewer toxins in to your body and support your body as it takes the toxins that are in there out. Yeah. Because we're going to come across toxins living in the world, no matter what you eat and what you spray on your skin. You're going to be riding in an Uber where the guy wore a whole lot of cologne, and you're going to have stuff coming in. You didn't want to come in. That's going to happen. You're going to go to a restaurant and eat food that's not organic. That's going to happen. And so, you're going to have to manage things. You can't control every variable. So you need to support your body, because our body is great at removing, we have natural things that help us remove the toxins, like fasting, our liver, all these self-cleaning mechanisms that are supposed to work. But the more I researched, the more I was like, okay, this is, I knew it was important. We all know it. Like, you go to anybody in the world and everybody's like, yeah, I should eat better. I should use better stuff. I know I should. No big deal. We all know it. But then it's really overwhelming, and we don't really know where to start or why. But the more I dug in, the more I was like, okay, it really, really matters. I mean, babies born now, even if you're a mom who's doing her very, very best to, eat the way you're supposed to and avoid, all the toxins you're supposed to avoid, babies that are born now are born with all these toxins in their cord blood, these environmental toxins that we just have inside of us as women. And they go into our babies through their umbilical cords, no matter how careful we are. So babies are already starting their life with a body burden, with a toxic load. That if you go back, that didn't happen because we didn't have all these, man-made chemicals out in the world. So we're really fighting a different battle and once we understand that, we're like, okay, maybe it does matter if I have a bunch of toxic air fresheners plugged in all over my house. They may smell wonderful, but what are they really doing to my body or my children's bodies? And then you start, digging in, and you're like, it really, really does matter. The cleaning products I'm using, I just made a simple swap. I got a different brand of cleaning products that were safe, and boom, it was that easy. It wasn't hard. No. And I did realize I'd been super greenwashed, meaning the products that I thought were good because of the claims on the labels, I checked them.
Yeah. Oh,
against the database, like the Environmental Working Group has an app. I was super like wrong about
Well,
what I thought was going to be good was not good. And
you know,
so,
same here. Like actually, yeah, like a shout out to the environmental working group. If none of you have heard about that before, it's a great website, but they also have an app and you can so easy download it on your phone and just type in. I did my own experiment. I used
yeah,
yeah, like my own foundation. I typed in there and it was like an orange, like so
yeah,
it could definitely be better, but I'm
right.
not surprised because it's from one of the larger
Right.
like
Yeah.
makeup
It, and you may
yeah.
need to spend a little more for your makeup, but maybe not. I mean, there's a brand I love that I use mostly, Beauty Counter. That's the brand that I use for my makeup. But like they didn't have the eyeshadow that I wanted anymore. They stopped make they're reformulating their eyeshadows to make them even safer. So I had to get another brand of eyeshadow.
Yeah.
Mineral Fusion is the brand of eyeshadow that I could buy it on Amazon, and it's not expensive. I mean, my friend Sherry uses their eyeshadow too, and she can buy it at the grocery store. I mean, you don't have to.
Oh.
And if you go to the department store counters, people are spending
Hmm.
more money on that fancy stuff than
Yeah,
I'm spending, right?
exactly. Yeah,
On
no,
some of
you're
the stuff
right.
I'm pretty simple here, but
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be expensive, but you do have to invest. Like I have to invest in organic dairy, for example.
Okay. Yeah.
I choose organic dairy only if I'm at home. Obviously, if I'm out in public, I'm going to eat what's out there. But if I'm at home and I'm using butter, it's organic butter. I'm buying organic cream, organic cheese when I can, although not all cheese is easy. Not all cheese is able, like you can't find organic brie, for example, where I live. So if I want brie, it's not going to be organic, but it's going to cost more. Organic cream is like more than twice as expensive as
Yeah.
regular cream. So
Yeah.
I have to think of it as, why does it matter? Well, all the toxins that mama cow was exposed to through her not organic feed, the pesticides she was exposed to, any of the hormones she may have been given,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
all of those things are in the standard cream, that because they get concentrated in her fat. And then
Yeah.
here's the cream. So we're getting like all the stuff that the mama cow filtered out on. Now it's in this cream or in this butter,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I have to invest a little more to get the organic version, but down the road, maybe I won't get cancer. I mean, you
Right.
can't prove that ever because you
No.
don't know what would have happened. But so many of these things are linked to negative health outcomes down the road that I just want to keep my body burden and my toxic load as low as I can. And
Exactly.
I feel like it's my best bet. I'm investing now, and then later, hopefully, I'm not taking any medications now. I'm 52. It's probably very unusual to not be on any medications at
Right.
this age. I'm not. I'm in fabulous health. My numbers are all wonderful, and I want to keep them that way as long as possible.
Well, actually, you bring up a point. Have you ever done any sort of specialized testing, like whether that be toxicity level or hormone or GI? Have you ever done any?
Like just the normal, like
No, no, no. I mean, like
like
specialized, like you would go to a functional medicine doctor or a
have my
naturopathic
hormones
doctor.
checked. Yeah, I have.
Okay,
There's I can't, what's the name of that company that will
Dutch,
test? No,
Dutch. Oh,
no, I can't. No, I'm trying to think of it. There's a company that actually is about to sponsor my podcast, and they do like so many different things. Like they'll tell you
okay.
your cortisol levels
Yeah,
and your all of
yeah.
that stuff, your hormone
Mhm.
levels. Yes, your
Get yeah, get
vitamin
tested or
D.
yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah,
not
yeah.
get tested. I can't think of the name of it off the top of my head, but I've done things
Okay.
like that.
Okay.
I've done the standard things. I had a
Yep.
functional medicine doctor check all my hormones.
So did you have any insights from that? Like, did
I'm very
no,
healthy.
no,
I'm very
no,
healthy.
no, good. Yeah. So like, yeah, like either before or after starting. I mean, before you started
Well,
intermittent
before I
fasting,
started,
it would
like
have
I
been,
was struggling. I mean,
yeah,
I had fibroids. I had to have
yeah.
fibroid surgery,
Mm-hmm.
and that was miserable. That was before intermittent fasting,
Mm-hmm.
and I was obese. I'm
Mm-hmm.
certain that. I mean, I didn't go to the doctor a lot back
Mm-hmm.
then, but I went a lot. Every time I did go to the doctor, it was always for like I had an ear infection or I had, I needed an antibiotic. So several
Mm-hmm.
times a year, I would get sick and need to have an antibiotic. But
Yeah.
since intermittent fasting, I have not had to go back to the doctor for an illness except one time in 2015, when I was just a baby faster at that point. I'd just barely been fasting, but I felt really bad. And I thought I might be getting a like strep throat or something. So I went to the doctor. I was like, I think I might have strep throat. And so they did all the tests. They're like, nope, you've got the flu. It's flu B or something. And I'm like, what? I don't feel bad enough for it to be flu. I thought it was just, I don't know, something else. So I haven't
Wow.
been to the doctor for a sick visit since 2015.
That's amazing. Well, that tells you something right there, right?
Yeah.
Like totally. But like, when you're talking about like toxins in our environment, like, and, or even the way people eat now or like too much processed food, you'll have these people that I would say close-minded people that are like, oh, you're being ridiculous. Like my grandfather, da, 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 or did it, like whatever, we never used to eat like this. Why do we have to eat like this now? Well, that's one of the reasons is I think there is so much more toxins in our environment now
It's so
that
different.
we do have to eat differently. And the other thing too is I think back in like I often think about, when you watch those old films or like even like Leave It to Beaver, and you look at, women like, in their 50s, like they were slim. So you're thinking, well, I know that they didn't intermittent fast or
Oh, it was so different. You remember the movie The Burbs? Did you ever see that movie? Tom
I
Hanks was in
think
it.
I
And Carrie
did. Yeah.
Fisher. I just love that movie. It's one of my favorite movies. The Burbs. Everyone go watch The Burbs.
Okay, definitely.
It's campy. It's really funny. But there's a line that jumped. It was maybe from the 90s, right? I'm trying late 80s, early 90s. I don't know when that movie came out. Somewhere late 80s, early 90s. But in it, they're like the whole neighborhood's trying to solve these problems, crime, whatever, something mysterious disappearance of their neighbor. And at one point, the guy's like, yeah, he's that fat guy. And they're talking about one of their neighbors and they call him the fat guy. And I'm like, what? He was like just the average guy now.
Oh, wow.
I mean, what they called the fat guy in the Burbs, he was not even, barely be even considered, I mean, overweight. I don't know. But I was like, that wasn't that long ago that movie came out. And like, I have an uncle who has Fragile X syndrome.
Oh, yeah.
So he doesn't have the stop eating, satiety signal at all. And he just, eats and eats and eats whatever he can find. My grandmother always struggled with that. If she didn't lock it up, he would eat it, kind of a thing. And it was always such a struggle. And growing up, Uncle Buddy was always so much bigger than everyone else. And I remember being a child in the 70s and going out with Uncle Buddy. And it was like, well, he just really sticks out like a sore thumb. But now he's still the same as he was in the 70s. And we go out and he's not different. He fits right in. And it's very striking just remembering as a child, like, wow, Uncle Buddy is so very different from the way everyone else looks, but not anymore. So why is it? I think that honestly, one day I was in Costco looking at the beverage aisle, and I swear the beverages, that's what's done it to us. When people like my grandmother would have a cup of coffee and then she didn't have anything else for the rest of the morning. And then she had lunch. She wasn't keeping her insulin going all day long. We're constantly nursing a beverage. If you look at people out there, they were always like, I was a teacher. Every teacher and paraprofessional in the school walked around with one of those tumblers of coffee all day.
Wow. Yeah.
And if you looked what was in there, it was always had creamer or some kind of sweetener. I mean, maybe it was 0-calorie sweetener, but so it was like, fine. Or then they would be drinking their Diet Coke all day. And so people are constantly drinking something that has flavor or sweetness. So what does that do? Well, your body has that cephalic phase insulin response to that food flavor, that sweetness. Even if you're just like nursing that Diet Coke from morning to night, your insulin is going up, 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 up. Have you read Benjamin Bickman's book?
Yes.
Why We Get Sick?
Yeah.
It's insulin resistance is the root of, so many things. Hyperinsulinemia is like, it's pandemic, right? It's really, and I've had my fasted insulin tested and it's very low. I don't have pre-fasting numbers, but I would pretty much bet you it was pretty high.
Yeah. No, So that's why what provoked me to ask, have you done like the sort of the keto thing where,
Oh
you
yeah.
had, yeah. And so, your insulin, but like insulin wouldn't have been a problem for you then, but it was probably fat metabolism that was.
Well, it might have because I was probably also drinking diet sodas
Oh, well, there you go.
at
Okay.
the same
Yes.
time,
Right.
So,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I didn't, remember, that was before the obesity code. No
Mhm.
one in the keto world was talking about insulin response from diet sodas until we read
Yeah.
the obesity code. And then he's talking about the cephalic phase insulin response. I'm like, what? And then I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, and,
Yeah. It's hard to
I've dug in
believe.
to that as well. The studies with the mice or the rats, whichever it was, and they taste the sweetness and their insulin is released. And then they cut the nerve from their tongue to their brain. And then they put the same thing in there and then the insulin is not released. I mean, that's pretty striking that it's related to the taste.
Yeah, no, it really is. Yeah, and not to minimize the fact that all those artificial sweeteners wreak havoc on your gut as
Oh, yeah.
well. That's another thing. So
A whole separate issue, but they're definitely not doing anyone any favors at all.
no,
At all. And I mean, I
no.
was one of those people. I always had a diet soda with me. I mean, it was at first I
Hmm.
was drinking, I mean, not anymore. I don't drink them now at all, but it
Yeah,
was, a Diet Coke or Diet Mountain Dew or Zevia when I was,
right.
trying to be more health conscious, but that's still, an
Still,
artificial
right.
soda.
Well, how about like bubbly as well, right? Are you?
Well, I believe during the fast, you don't want to have any kind of flavor that's going to have your brain think food is coming. So no
Mm,
to the flavored sparkling waters like a lemon or a raspberry or a lime. If it's a fruity flavor, your
yeah.
brain is like, oh, fruit's coming. And so you're going to have that insulin response. So you
Hmm.
need to stick to plain water, plain carbonated water, no added flavors, black coffee, nothing added that's going to make it sweeter flavored. Avoid the hazelnut or vanilla roast, all that. Just keep that
Yeah.
for your eating window.
Yeah.
If you think about it and think that sounds delicious, you don't want it during your fast.
Hmm.
Plain tea is also fine, but you don't want to have the bone broth or the bulletproof coffee or any of
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Plain water, plain sparkling water, black coffee, plain tea. The difference is night and day. And in Fast Feast Repeat, I have an entire section where it's just people telling their story of why the clean fast matters. And it's just, it's like a bunch of people sent it in and we put it in there and it's like really powerful because it's not just me telling you this. I can
Yeah.
say it all day long, but it's like people who were like, yeah, I didn't really believe her. And then I tried it and she was right. Or I didn't think lemon in my water could really make a difference. And then I tried it without it. Oh, so I encourage anyone who, maybe is like, well, I heard you could have 50 calories and still be fasting. So I'm going to keep using the cream because I heard it was fine. And I saw it in a video. Right.
Hmm.
I would encourage anyone who feels that way to take the clean fast challenge. I talk about it in Fast Feast Repeat. Give yourself a month.
Hmm.
Do it my way for 1 month. Then you can do whatever you want. Just do it for a month. Then try to go back to what you did before. And I will bet you're not going to want to have that anymore. Whatever it was that you thought was fine, you'll realize, okay, that lemon really was a problem and I didn't know it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the whole thing is experimentation and know yourself, know your body, and do it. Like
Yeah.
just believe in it. Like believe in
Right.
yourself that it is the right thing to do, and don't let yourself get skewed, with whatever magazine article you read that day or yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And really, I feel like once you commit to intermittent fasting, I would say read Fast Feast Repeat, and then just like commit to I'm going to do this. And you know how we start to be like, well, I just want to watch everything and see everything I can about this. That's when
Mhm.
you're going to get confused. You'll
Mhm.
go to YouTube and you'll see this person say one thing and this person say something else, and this person, they're like, well, this person says you should have bone broth all morning, and this person says to chug MCT oil. Then you're going to be so confused
Yeah.
that I just really, once you get started, just stick to it.
Yeah.
Fast, clean. Don't try to take in all the information at once until you're adapted and then you're ready. And then it's natural to want to learn more, but you'll be able to filter it through, a more educated eye, let's just
Yes.
say.
Yeah. So I like, and I know I have to let you go too, but I like the way you start with if we were going to kind of follow the Jen Stevens protocol right now, it would be, let's start with fast feed repeat.
Yeah.
Maybe
Fast feast repeat.
And then delay, don't deny.
If you want. I mean, it was my first book.
Similar?
It was self-published. Okay. It's not like different information, but there are some things in there that aren't in fast feast repeat.
Okay.
But you don't need to read Delay, Don't Deny unless you just really love my writing and you'd like to hear more about it. Well, like my personal story is in Delay, Don't Deny.
Okay. Well, and like I listened to both of those books on Audible, and I really like them a lot. It's so easy. It's so easy to listen. And then Cleanish, I have the hard copy just because I know you said it's a workbook, and I listened to you. Jen. Yeah. So you're the teacher, I'm the student. So I'm taking it all in.
With Cleanish, you want the paperback. If you get only one version, get the paperback. Mm-hmm. And then there's at jenstevens.com/cleanish, there's a PDF you can download and it accompanies it. So you can write on that. Mm-hmm. And there's also the Audible version if you like to listen, but I would think of those as support. You want to have I'm a teacher, so I know the best way to get information into your brain is by reading a paper book.
Yes.
That really is the best way. And Audible, most people are not as strong auditory learners as they are the visual learner.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. The teacher coming out and you.
There you go.
Or, but let's say you're just not a reader. Then, the podcasts are also a great, and I would say, go to, intermittent fasting stories. If you like a story, a lot of people just love stories.
People love that podcast.
Yeah. And then the, intermittent fasting with Melanie, if you want to get a little more scientific, do that one because she's a science geek. And then I liked life lessons as well, because
it's not a fasting podcast at all. It's about
other stuff. And so it's so nice, and it's just like kind of like two moms kind of talking.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. So thanks so much, Jen. It was just great having you here today. I appreciate you did all the work for everybody else. So,
well, that's the teacher in me again. My job, I'm trained to deliver content to other people. So that is really what I do, through my books. And, I've lived it. I lost over 80 pounds, have kept it off even as I went through menopause, and that never happened before. And every day I eat foods that I love and I feel fantastic. So
yeah, there you go. You don't need to hear anything else.
That's it.
So, okay. Well, have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Thanks once again for joining me on another great episode of I Think I Can podcast. If you liked it, please subscribe below so you don't miss out on any future episodes. And until next week, treat each day like it was your last, because each new day is a privilege that we shan't take for granted. Cheers and have a great week. Bye-bye.